Great, thank you. All right, as Yen mentioned, I'm going to do about a 20-25 minute or so demo of the new project service automation solution for Microsoft CRM. We'll cover the basic project lifecycle kind of from start to finish, hit a little bit of everything along the way. And as Yen mentioned, the solution covers end-to-end of that project lifecycle, all the way from the front end on the opportunity management through estimating, project setup, time and expense entry, and billing. But let's circle back and kind of start at some of the analytics, and then we'll finish here as well too. One of the ways of displaying the analytics that we need to operate our business is through dashboards. And here is just an example of one of the dashboards that comes out of the box with CRM PSA. As you can see, I'm on my practice management dashboard, and I have snippets of information that are delivered in these interactive graphs. For instance, if we look in the top right-hand corner, I can see sales for the previous month and my current month, as well as that gross margin, costs, utilization. But let's just peek at this sales one and dig into it a little bit more. So I can see sales for April and May. And if I select on April, I'll see my slicer here, and I can choose to look at that by customer. Okay? And once I do that, it breaks out that April by customer, and I can pop that out into a little bit larger view if I want to see that as well too. And if I need to drill this down more, let's say perhaps I want to see that by role or resource, then I can just continue to kind of investigate and drill through there. Okay? And this is in addition to the standard Power BI type tools that are always available with the Microsoft solutions. Okay? And the same thing down in the left-hand corner, now I can look at booked hours by month for my entire staff. I can see April and May, look at differences in that between that pace of how we're progressing on projects and how much time people are actually billing into the projects. If I want to slice and dice that, again, I can select April, choose by, let's say, by role this time, and then I'm actually being able to slice and dice this by the different types of roles that I've broken my organization into. For instance, maybe a PM, principal, functional consultant. Okay? So it just gives me this quick BI, one of those nice tools on the dashboard. But as Yen mentioned, CRM PSA manages that end-to-end life cycle. So let's kind of start at the beginning of the opportunity and pick it up there, and then we'll walk it through the process. So I'm going to switch to a different dashboard. I'm going to go to my sales activity dashboard. And through my sales tools, I'm able to capitalize on all of the great sales and marketing tools that are inherent already in Microsoft CRM, but now I'm adding in the features for strong project management through the project service automation, so I get the best of both worlds here. So I'm on my sales activity. I can look at my opportunities. I've got some leads I'm working up here in the right-hand corner. Some of those have progressed to actual opportunities, and I see those. And my activities that I'm managing and tracking on all that, those events are shown here exactly, quick and handy where I can get to them. But let's dig into one of these opportunities. I'm going to go and use my search facility here and look at a project, a opportunity I have called a website development. I have a client that needs a quick client portal done, kind of a quick turnaround small project. So as I open that opportunity, I'm able to see all the key things I need to know. If I look in the top right-hand corner, I can see that it's going to be around a $75,000 project. I expect it to close pretty quick here at the end of the week. I can see all my activities and notes that are right there on it, who's working with me on the sales team, right? The client has about a $75,000 budget to work with, so I'm going to be tracking to that. But that gives me that nice central place where everyone can see what progress is taking place with this opportunity. Now, I've worked up an estimate and a tentative schedule for this opportunity. Let's look at that and how that interplays with my opportunity as I'm pursuing this project with the client. Okay? So I'm just going to scroll down here, and you'll see that I've established a quote for this opportunity. Right now, I'm around 63,000 and change with what I've worked up on the work breakdown schedule, and I'm using my standard U.S. prices for this client. I have different price lists, and I've applied a certain one to this quote, based on what defaulted from the client. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open this quote up so we can take a little bit more look at the detail. Okay. If we look at the quote line section here, I can see that I have some services, some labor that I'm going to use to build this website for the client, and that's going to be around $60,000, and some travel expenses. And I'm going to sell them some CRM online seats as well. So I can easily mix different types of elements in this quote, more project-related ones like services and travel expenses, as well as product-based ones like licenses, equipment, or things that might need to go hand in hand with the labor and the service part of the project delivery part of my project. Okay. Now, let's take a look at where the service estimate comes in. Let's focus on that one for the moment. It's around $60,000. How did I develop that estimate? Okay. I'm just going to drill through and we're going to look at the work breakdown structure or the WBS that's associated to this estimate. Okay. Now, this is an optional way I used for quoting. I didn't have to do it this way. I could have just kind of keyed in some roles and some rates and or inherited the rates from my price list. But in this case, I really wanted to break it down in a little more detail and kind of use these tasks to build up my estimate. So as soon as I go into the WBS, you'll see kind of a normal look and feel for a work breakdown structure. I have my list of tasks over here on the left-hand panel. Okay, so I've got some project management tasks. I have a scope development. I'm going to do a project plan for a kickoff meeting and execute that. Then we're going to have a workshop on requirements analysis with the client, do some architecture and design development and Q&A. Okay? So those all flow together for about 340 hours of work on this. And that's going to be accomplished by a few different people. If I look at my roles here, let me just expand this out, and you'll see that I have a project manager, functional consultant, architect. So 3 or 4 different people will fill roles on this project. Now, when I look over here on my Gantt chart on the right, I can see it's a very typical Gantt chart, but I've got all the flexibility to, actually navigate and do some drag and drop here on the chart. So perhaps I want to change my relationships predecessors. I can always just drag and do that with my arrows here. Or if a task needs to move out, I need to add more hours, I can simply adjust that with the drag and drop, and that Gantt chart will adjust my tasks on the left. Now, if I'm really focusing in on my tasks, and I want to just hide that, I can hide that Gantt, and that just gives me a nice table view of these tasks, the effort that I expect on them, and then the start and end date. I've let the system plan this out for me based on my predecessors, or I could have manually said, no, I'm going to fill this in myself, but I've let the system do that rough cut estimating for me. So I'm going to start this next week, and we should finish up in mid-July based on this workload. So that gives me a look, gives you kind of a glance at that task-based approach. Now, if you remember, I applied a certain price list to this that had rates. This is a T&M project it's going to be, so I have billable rates for this client. Okay? So now let's switch to our estimate view, and that just takes this work breakdown, applies that price list, and then time phases this revenue for me, this projected revenue, so I can kind of see how this estimate would flow week by week. I've asked for the time scale to be week. I could change that to a different time scale if I wanted to. Okay, so now I can see that revenue all rolled up, right, as well as by role. So I can see my tasks by role, time phased out by week. Okay, if I wanted to choose different roll-ups by category, I could switch to that. And perhaps I want to look at that maybe a time phased by hours. Now my WBS is actually time phased by hours here. Okay, and I can adjust that as needed. And if I'm looking at my cost side, based on my standard cost for these roles, I get a cost picture of that as well too. So using that WBS, putting that price list together with that, and I've developed this nice time phase estimate to give me a sense of how this project will look and when it can be delivered. Now let's go back to our quote. If we look at the service line here, let me just open this up. You saw I had that WBS very detailed. Often I don't want to maybe, I don't need to present it to the client that way. Perhaps I want to roll it up at a little bit higher level. So when I brought that WBS into my quote line here, I imported it from the WBS, and when I brought it in, I said I wanted to summarize it by role. So it's taken those roles, just rolled up those time and delivery dates by role. So now I've got a nice high-level summary that I can choose to present to the client. And had I not used the WBS, then I could have just worked my quote lines right up from here in whatever flavor and level of granularity I wanted to. Okay. Now, let's go back to our quote quick and look at just a few metrics that I get right up front on my quote header here, and then my profitability analysis, because I really want to know if I'm able to fit the budget the client set before me and that delivery date. So if I look at the top, I can see that I'm within the customer budget of $75,000, because we're at $63,500 and some change. And we were scheduled to finish around mid-July, so that puts us within that end-of-month time frame from the client. So I always see this as I work that quote, it always will map me back to those client expectations. Based on my standard costs, I'm at about a 33% gross margin on this. And when I pop down to my profitability analysis, I can simply refresh these charts here. And that just gives me a little finer picture. I can see that revenue flow month by month, and I can also look at it broken out by role. So it just gives me some nice feedback right here on my quote. Now I'm going to put this quote before my customer, and once I do that, let's say that they are ready to move ahead, then I can go ahead and just mark this as 1, and that will transfer everything I'm doing here on the quote into a project contract, bring all that over. I don't have to rekey everything, and I can just move smoothly from this sales and opportunity management into my project delivery with this integrated solution that we have with project service embedded in CRM. So now let's move on to the delivery stage for this project. Let's say we're going to move ahead. Okay. And I'm just going to open up another project that I have pre-staged with some information just because we're kind of tight on timing here on our demo window. Okay. So I'm going to pull up a project, and I'll just, same one here that we had called web development. Now, let's do some resourcing on this project. Now we're kicking it going. We're going to need people to deliver this project. I could have done my resourcing early on, right up in that quoting phase. Either way, that's fine. I chose to wait this time and just do it once the project kicked off. So let's look at some of the tools I have to resource people to this project. Okay? Let's go back and revisit our WBS. Now, if you remember, I had 4 roles that we needed. We needed some PM time, functional consultant, an architect, and a developer. Okay? So now, when I choose the Generate Project Team button here on the WBS, it's going to analyze this WBS for me. Look at how many people I need based on my constraints for each role, and then propose that team makeup and put the requirements together for me of who I need when. Okay, I'm not going to assign it yet. I'm going to have the system kind of help me do that. But right now it just said, okay, I'm going to book these generic resource demands. I know you're going to need an architect, developer, functional consultant from this time and this many hours. Okay, now I've already assigned myself per cash as the project manager. Okay, so I've booked those hours, 140 of those hours now go into my calendar. But let's look at how we're situated for this functional consultant. What are our options here? So I'm going to go into the hard book here. That just lets me look at potential candidates for this role. So when I first open the screen, I'm able to see all of the potential candidates that might fit this based on who they are. They're functional consultants. So my filters over on the left here really allow me to just dial in on this candidate list. I'm just looking at everyone who's a consultant, but I could look at it by org unit, by team, or maybe perhaps a certain skill set I'm trying to find, okay, and narrow that down. And once I have that list, if you look at the top here, we can see the requirement that we brought in for my WBS, or I could have keyed and adjusted it in manually if I didn't want to use the WBS. But I can see I need this consultant for 80 hours. I need them 40 hours the first week and 40 hours the last week. The system's smart enough to know from my WBS how that flows through. Okay. Now, let's just, as I circle down the list, I'll get a nice little pop-up of each person, getting a little sense of their skills, availability, what their bill rate structure is. Okay. So that kind of gives me a sense if I want to mark a couple together and then compare, I can do that as well too, right? Now let's kind of zero in on Caitlin here. I've worked with her on other projects. I'm really comfortable with her. I think she could be a good fit for this. I see that I think we can make it work that first week, second week, the last week. She's already booked. Let's see what she's on and maybe I can make some adjustments there. So I can see that she's booked on this project one. That's also one that I manage. So I do have a sense of, I think I have some flexibility here, and I can remove this booking from her and maybe move her onto my project. So I'm going to go ahead and book her, and then I can go through and zero out once I book her and zero out the adjustment on the other project. Okay, so I'm going to select Caitlin, and then I'm going to go ahead and book. Okay, and then that's going to allocate those hours to her calendar and add her to my team and book her to my project. Okay. Now, another way that I'm able to do resource requests as well is perhaps I don't know everyone who is, on our dev team. I'm not as familiar as I am with the consultants, right? So I could select the developer requirement, and I could say, I'm just going to go ahead and submit a request based on who manages this team, and that resource request will go to that person. They can look at it, look at what I've said in there and say, hey, I think this person is good, and I'll tentatively book that person to the project for you, and then I can look at that and say, yep, I think that sounds good. So using that request process, it helps me then to either pass that on or have a more centralized resourcing function if that's my business model around resourcing. And a third way I might want to look at candidates for the project is to be able to allow people to kind of investigate what requirements are out there themselves through the self-service mobile app. So for instance, I just grabbed a couple screenshots here and pulled them into PowerPoint. But this is what it would look like on my mobile if I went into the Investigate Work application. I could see that there's a developer needed on the CRM upgrade project, some functional consultants, architects, and if I selected the CRM upgrade role, I could get a little more information. I could see the customer, where it's located, what we think the duration of that assignment would be, what specific requirements are on it, who else is on that team. And if it's something that I'm interested in, then I can indicate my interest that I want to be considered for that, and then that will then flag up to the PM and the resourcing manager that, hey, this is something that I'd like you to consider me for. So that's another great way of really allowing people to have a little more independence and a little more control on what they they might be able to indicate who they want to work with and what type of project, especially for large organizations. Right? Now I didn't mention it, but of course I could always just, if I know who I want, I could just assign them right out of the gate to the project by just selecting that bookable resource, and then I'm good to go as well too. Okay. So once my team is built, then one of the key things on continuing that this team works together well is that collaboration between them. And CRM, Project Service Automation for CRM, is heavily integrated into the Office 365 group, directly in it. So I'm in CRM still, and I can simply just go Office 365 groups. It's going to log me in based on my credentials and open up the Office 365 group page that's set up for this project. This is a one-time thing I did as a PM, is I opened up this project when I converted it from the quote. So now I've got all the tools of Office 365 built right into CRM. If I look on the left here, I can see my calendar items that are scheduled. We've got a kickoff meeting coming up. We're going to review the plan. We've got the client workshop coming up next week. So I can see all that right here. And if I open up my calendar, it's going to take me right through to my Office 365. I'm in my calendar as per cash. I can see the calendar for this project, website development. I can see these other ones as well. jump into my other groups, do my email, whatever I need to do. So that just tight integration really saves me time and helps keep me informed of what's going on. The section in the middle here, you'll notice, has my conversations. So my Skype conversations, I can quickly reach out to people on the team, as well as be able to, really have all that central location for the chatter that's going on about it. I can open up OneNote right from here. If you're not familiar with OneNote, it's really a great tool, especially for joint collaboration, for note-taking and working on documents. So for instance, maybe we have some note-taking we're going to be doing in our requirement session coming up. I'm able to then all collaboratively put our notes together as the session's going on, and we've got one central place to be able to then edit and work on these notes. Very much easier than a lot of documents spread out all over and trying to consolidate at the end. Okay? And of course, all my documents that I might have attached to it would be here, and then my team members would show here. And as I resource to the project, then those are automatically added to my site here. Okay? So this is just another way of really enhancing the efficiency of my team as we work together on this project. Okay, now that we're off and running on this project, let's enter some time and expense. Okay. Now I'm going to do it from my PC. I could do it from a mobile or tablet device as well, but you'll get the sense of it just as I work it, as I'm doing it as a user from my PC. So let's go back to our main menu for Project Service Automation, and I'm going to go into time entries here. Now, right when I come in, you can see I've already started my timesheet for the week. I had some time I put in yesterday, okay? And now I'm ready to put in some time for today on Tuesday. Now, I have this nice calendar view here where I can just select the plus arrow at the bottom, and I'm able to add those time entries. Or if I want, I can have a more traditional grid approach where I can simply select the project, choose my task, and add it into the squares over here on the right. But I kind of like this calendar view. Let's use that. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit plus. It's going to open up a new time entry, brings the date I selected. Let's say I worked for 8 hours. Okay, and I worked billable work versus absence or vacation. Okay, and I can just type ahead to the project. Let's say we worked on an architecture project, right? And then I automatically see all the tasks I was associated to, or I can say, show me the whole list. Maybe I'm not assigned to this, but I can still put time to it. That's okay. Then I can then choose what task that I'm selecting. Okay. Internal comments go through to my approver and stay on the record for the time. External comments flow through actually to billing. So I worked on the project plan, and I'm just going to call this project plan development when I want that to go through the billing. Once I save that, okay, then that adds that to my day. Okay, and I can just continue to build through the week that way. Okay. Now, let's say it's end of month. We need to push time through because we're trying to get some cutoff in for billing. Okay, I could wait and do all my time in 1 week, or if certain days need to be submitted independently, then I have the option of doing that. I can just select those records here, hit submit. It shows me which time ones that I've selected. If those are the ones I want to submit, okay, then I can go ahead and do that, and those will be pushed through right away into the approval process. Okay. Now, let's look at that approval process. I'm going to go back to my main menu here and choose Project Approvals. I've asked for the queue for time entries. Okay, there's different ones I may want to look at for expenses or vacation, or I can create my own filter that brings them all together in one view. I like to look at them kind of separately here. So I'm logged in as Prakash, and he's a time approver for Trisha. So let's just sort here by Trisha, and I can see down here she has some time from last week that's not approved yet. Okay, she worked on 2 different projects. Her time entry notes here to me tell me a little bit more that I may need to know, and then I can see how those comments are going to go through to billing. So I can select those, choose approve, or perhaps I need to reject those if she needs to change something about it. I think you got the wrong task or the wrong project, or I could actually go in there and edit if I needed to and change certain things that, that I might want to change as an approver. Okay? But let's go ahead and approve this. And those will send those, now moving those from just the submitted entry to actually approved. and those will now flow into the actuals against that project. Okay. All right, let's take a quick look at expenses entry. And again, I can do this on my mobile. I'm just going to do it on my PC here. Okay. Same look and feel. I have my nice calendar view, or I could switch to a grid view here. Let's go back to our calendar view. I'm just going to enter a new expense. And let's say it's airfare. Okay. Choose the project. What type of expense? As you mentioned, it's airfare. And it's going to be for the kickoff meeting. Okay. If I was capturing this from my my mobile device, of course, these receipts would be waiting here and preloaded for me with the entries I captured on my mobile. In this case, I didn't, so I could simply navigate out, attach receipts independently if I wanted to, and then save that entry. Okay. And then my submission is very similar. I can just select what I want to submit and then hit everything for the expense statement together, or individual ones if I need to push those through for certain projects in a timely manner. Okay, so that should give you kind of a feel for how a key part of that project lifecycle, time and expense, looks and feels for the users and for the approvers as they're trying to manage that process in your organization. Okay. Now that we have some activity on the project, let's look at a couple of our project tracking tools. Okay. Let's go back to our project and go back to, let's go back to our project, our web development project. And when I go to the menu for this project, I see an option called project tracking. We'll pretend a couple of weeks have already gone by and I've started work on this project already. Now you can see my Gantt chart on the right looks a little bit different. It has some indicators to me to let me know what's going on with this project. Right? When I look at the project management tasks, scoping, planning, kickoff meeting have been completed, right? Because the remaining hours are down to 0. Someone has updated the estimate to complete to 0. So that indicates to me that these project tasks are done. So now they're a little bit different color blue, so I can quickly see. I've burned through 36 hours so far of my 140 hours of PM time. So now I can see that green bar is slowly moving across to give me a sense, really a quick graphical view of, of what's happening and where I am on this project. Okay. So now if I hide this Gantt chart for a second, you'll get a little bit more view of what's on this project tracking view here. I can see that the effort that was budgeted on each of these tasks, the actual hours spent, the remaining hours, okay, and if I need to update this and say, I think I'm going to be a little bit over, I really do have 120, there's just a lot of PM, tough client on this project, right? Then I can update those remaining hours, and then that will adjust my schedule variance, giving me my estimate at completion and then my variance. My progress percentage tells me, based on those hours, I'm about 10% through of this project, okay? 23% of PM, that's the only thing we've started, and we've burned through about 10% of our hours, okay? Now, if I look at this from a cost perspective, just another indicator of my progress on it, I can see that from a cost perspective, okay, this is what my, based on the standard cost of those roles, this is kind of my burn rate from a cost perspective and where I am. So 10% effort-wise and pretty close to that on my cost consumption as well. Okay. So that lets me just kind of get a sense quickly from the project of where I am on it. Of course, we have all the various BI tools that we can bring together, budgets to actual, by project, by PM, aggregate for the business, but this is just one way of looking at it really quickly within the context of my project. Okay. Now, the last task I want to do in our project life cycle is invoicing. Okay. Let me select a project that I have ready for invoicing. Okay. So we're just going to go back to our main menu, select our projects, and I'm going to look at this one here called Architecture Audit. We've been doing a technology audit for a client, and it's a T&M project, and we're ready to cut some invoices. Okay. So I can do this in batch mode, of course, but I'm just going to do this simply kind of one by one with a button here. All right. I'm going to move up to the contract, which holds the actual billing elements, that the rates and the invoicing attributes and the terms and things like that around that project. Okay. So when I do that, you'll see a button at the top here called Create Invoice. Once I select that, then that's going to generate the invoices, a draft invoice for me based on anything that's eligible to date to be built into that project, based on the invoicing schedule that I set up on that contract. So you can see that based on the activity and the labor and the time that we've put in that project, I don't have any expenses yet. I've just booked time to it. It's a T&M project, okay? Um, the, the services estimate was $14,000. Okay, I haven't invoiced anything yet, and the system has queued up a little over $5,000 for me that's flowing into this first invoice. Let's open that up and take a look at it. Okay, now you can see the individual chargeable transactions that flowed through. We have some PM work and some architecture work, okay, done by Prakash and Trisha. It was chargeable based on the bill rate that was set up on that rate schedule. Okay? And I could have adjusted that rate scale on a project-by-project basis if I needed to, okay? Giving me my total amount. Now, if I did have transactions I still want to book and present to the client, but they were non-billable, I would see those flow through here. And then just for my information, if there was some non-chargeable work, perhaps some rework or learning or shadowing, I myself would see that summarized down here, but that wouldn't be presented to the client. Right? When I'm good with this, I can go ahead and distribute this to the client. And in doing that, that will book those actuals as invoiced transactions, and that will prepare those actuals then for a feed to the back office financial system, whatever back office financial system you're using to sit behind the CRM PSA automation. Okay? So that finishes up our project lifecycle task. Let's come back and look at one more thing about analytics, and then we'll tie our demo up there. Okay? So let's go back to our dashboard. Actually, we'll just take one step first. Let's go to the main menu here, and let's look at resource utilization. Of course, this is key for any services-based organization. Now, when I select this, I quickly get a real-time summary of my utilization by resource, by week, put against their targets. And that color lets me know that. So I'm just going to change my options here for a minute. Let's look at percent first. Okay. So this gives me the percent utilization. Those in green, if you look at my key at the bottom, are met or above their target. So most of my staff had a target of 75% here. Okay. Those that are in red are below that target. And if I had it in yellow that were right getting close, I would see those showing up in yellow. So this just gives me a quick feel, kind of a visual look of where I am utilization. Of course, this can all be done with standard reports as well, but this online view is really nice when I need that quick look. Okay, and I can choose to aggregate it by different time periods, so I could aggregate it by month, break it back down by week, whatever works for that picture I'm looking for right now. Now I'm looking at everybody here on the left. Of course, I could always use my filters to search by business unit, a certain person, or see all my PMs together. So that allows me to really drill in to the different people when I want to focus and find things quickly. And as we saw when I first loaded it, I could actually choose hours here as well as an option if I just want to see that utilization hours versus against the percentage. Okay? And all of those, again, this data flows through. Let's go back to our dashboard, kind of tie it all up there. Go to my dashboard, look at that project practice management dashboard. And if I look at my grid down in the bottom here, my active role utilization, that's going to take that utilization data, okay? It's going to compare it to the target, and I've asked for this by role, okay? So in this case, everyone's about at that 75% in my demo data here, okay? But I could then look and sort by name, drill down by different attributes, and really kind of get that big picture of that utilization along with other financial metrics about the projects that my organization is building. So hopefully this gave you a quick look at the life cycle that, that this solution covers. So project service automation for CRM covers that end-to-end project lifecycle, all the way from opportunity tracking through estimating, resourcing, time and expense, billing, preparing these financial transactions to hand over to the back office financial system, and giving us a great suite of BI tools around that. Okay, so that ends our actual solution presentation part for today. So Yen, back to you for a few follow-up slides on how this solution fits into a lot of the other solutions that Microsoft has for managing project-based businesses.